Right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 51 of the FilmBrony Podcast. I am, of course, Nick Canino. The guy in charge of this, and with me is with me. I have here is the guy that created this whole podcast. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, it's safe to say that after a long and tedious election season, it's about time to look at the movies that come out in December, like the Oscar movies and the holiday specials.
Yeah, exactly.
Some, some of which we'll go over here.
Yeah, really. I mean, and you know what the sad thing is? I have a political satire, and I'm going to talk about later on. So yeah, yeah. It's been a long, tedious election year. It's just thank God it's over, and that we don't have to worry about this again for another 4 years. Thank God. Anyway, and and I just would rather keep this brief because I do not want to get into another political debate with anyone whatsoever. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I will see Wicked eventually. It's just I have a lot of catching up to do, and I really do want to see a real pain.
Yeah.
So anyway, and for those wondering, we will discuss Sonora on the next podcast. Søren still has yet to see that film first, but we will discuss it next podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, tonight on this 51st episode of the Film Brony Podcast, we're gonna take a look at the movies that came out from like September, from the remaining ones from like September all the way through most of October, and then Søren right here will be talking about his most and least anticipated films of 2025. So the reason why I will not be presenting my list of my most and least anticipated films of 2025 on this podcast is because number one, I don't have a list yet, and number two, I don't know what my least and most anticipated film of 2025 is just yet. So you're gonna have to bear with me on this one, guys, until I can finally reveal the list on the next podcast. So bear with me as I try to find this. So, but anyway, without further ado, let's just get on with our usual stuff for tonight's podcast, starting with our Blu-ray showcase.
All right. All That Jazz.
Great film.
This MGM Best of Romance collection, pretty hard to find.
I could tell. Also, happy 100 years, MGM.
Uh-huh. The Bike Riders.
Great film.
This Forever Marilyn Monroe collection.
She's a great actress.
We're going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu. Lawrence of Arabia and Gandhi.
Both excellent films.
Love, Simon.
Great film.
Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
One of the best movies I've seen this entire year so far.
The Others.
Nice.
The Queen. Redcliffe, the extended version. The Verdict. And Nick, I know what you're gonna say, but I'll just say save it until we review Venom. Anyways, The Watchers.
All right. I only have three with me for today's podcast, and I might as well reveal what they are. Starting with X-Men: Days of Future Past.
One of the best movies of the series.
Absolutely, and listen, say what you want about Bryan Singer. Terrible person in general. But he did. But without him, we wouldn't have this. So
yeah, he has made some good movies like the X-Men movies, Usual Suspects.
Yeah. Next up, one of the best movies I saw from the last decade, Birdman.
That's probably my number 2 of that year behind Whiplash.
It was also my number 2 behind Whiplash. how ironic that you and I have both the same top two of 2014.
Yeah,
Anyway, and then one of my favorite movies of 2016, The Witch.
that's a great one too.
Yeah, I thought since I didn't have the Blu-ray of Robert Eggers' first movie, I thought I would get it right away. Especially since I already have The Lighthouse and The Northman, and I cannot wait to see Nosferatu in December. My most anticipated film for the rest of the year. Anyway, let's get on with our usual reviews. Starting with the Netflix film I saw called His Three Daughters. Now, His Three Daughters stars Elizabeth Olsen, Natasha Lyonne, and Carrie Coon, and it's basically about three distant sisters who reunite in New York City to care for their sick father. But tensions rise as they confront past issues, aiming to heal family bonds and amid laughter and tears. I had heard praises about this film ever since. I had heard nothing but unanimous praise for the film, and after seeing the movie, it is not hard to see why. It is not hard to see the praise for this one. I really like this one a lot. In fact, this is one of the better movies I've seen in 2024. The story felt raw and highly engaging. Itself, Jacobs' directing was fantastic, and so was the screenplay that he wrote for the film, especially with it having riveting dialogue and characters that feel flawed yet fleshed out and real. The acting was absolutely terrific. Carrie Coon was brilliant in the film, and so was Elizabeth. Carrie Coon, Elizabeth Olsen, and Natasha Lyonne all delivered such fantastic performances in the film. It's also got excellent cinematography, great editing. There were also some humorous moments sprinkled into the mix, which I did appreciate. The film also does a brilliant job exploring its themes on sisterhood, grief, and personal growth. And the lack of musical score successfully added the tone and realism the film was trying to go for, which I was very, very impressed by. Now, the reason why it's not quite one of my favorite movies of 2024 is because, other than the film suffered through a couple pacing issues in the second act, I felt the ending and its decision on it felt a bit uneven. I understand its decision and its ambiguity, but it just felt a bit uneven if I'm going to be honest. But overall, this is one of the better movies I've seen this year. His Three Daughters features terrific powerhouse performances by Carrie Coon. Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. Overall, though, His Three Daughters features terrific powerhouse performances by Carrie Coon, Natasha Lyonne, and Elizabeth Olsen, and it's such a deeply moving and honest portrait on grief and sisterhood. One of the better movies I've seen this entire year. 9 out of 10, or an A minus.
Now we're gonna get to one of the biggest flops in recent memory, Megalopolis. And this is an interesting one, to say the least.
For Coppola, why? Why?
It's an idea that's been at the back of Francis Ford Coppola's mind since the mid-'80s, and he's been spending literal decades trying to perfect it and bring it to the big screen. And when it finally released just recently, not only has practically nobody seen it in spite of its ensemble cast and huge budget, but split both critics and audiences down the middle. Some call it autistic genius, while others call it an ambitious mess. And as I've seen this movie for myself, I'd be lying if I said I didn't see both points of view. It's definitely an abstract mess with a story that goes a bit all over the place and takes certain directions that are rather questionable. Then the CGI is really wonky at times, almost like...
Oh my god, the CGI! Like, good grief!
Yeah, like you can tell...
What were they thinking?
Like you can tell, most of the budget went to the massive cast. However, it's a very interesting abstract mess. All the actors are great in this, with Adam Driver and Giancarlo Esposito being the highlights. The visuals, while fake-looking, are really starting to look at and give the film a unique identity. and it explores themes of political corruption and the debate on whether it's best to update the city's culture or leave society alone. So while this isn't one of the very best of the year, it's certainly an experience to behold. And despite its faults, I'd still recommend giving it a watch just to see how batshit insane Coppola's imagination can be. Ultimately, Megalopolis gets the seal of accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. And The Wild Robot is a better movie. Better movie than Megalopolis. You know, and Søren, I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but I have to say what I have to say. Let me get this straight about this year. A Hasbro produced movie involving the Transformers is a better movie than a Francis Ford Coppola film. Let me repeat that again. We are living in a world where a Hasbro movie involving the Transformers is a better movie than a Francis Ford Coppola film. What does that tell you? Yeah, I really did not like this movie. I am not kidding when I say that this is one of the most self-indulgent, boring, and inconsistent movies I've ever seen. It's one of those movies where it's admirable with its message it's trying to get across, involving a better future as well as society. But when the story is a convoluted mess and the characters feel paper thin and one-dimensional, then the message falls very flat. And do you want to know what really annoys me about this film? I've been hearing some people compare this to Coppola's other film, Apocalypse Now, and I do not see the comparison whatsoever. Yes, Apocalypse Now was met with mixed reviews when it was first released back in 1979, but you know what made that film work and not... You know what made that film work and why Megalopolis failed? Apocalypse Now was masterful with the way it captured the horrors of the Vietnam War to the point where you can call it an anti-war film. That's why it later got a critical. That's why it later got a critical acclaim reviews following its re-release, and it's considered by many to be one of the greatest war films ever made. This, on the other hand, Megalopolis, on the other hand, is nothing but 138 minutes with credits of Francis Ford Coppola trying to fit in so many subplots that either feel undercooked or serve no purpose to the story whatsoever. And I know what you're going to ask me. Are there any redeeming qualities in this? Yes. There are some good performances by Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, and Nathalie Emmanuel. It's got fantastic cinematography, excellent production design, and a solid score, and a solid musical score. Yeah, mega fuckpolis, all right, or really, it should be called Mega Flopolis, because that's what this movie is. One big fat flop. That is nothing more than a pretentious ego trip of a movie. God, I mean, the story was an overbloated mess, and not only was Francis Ford Coppola directing a muddled mess, but so was his screenplay, especially with how paper thin and one-dimensional the characters felt, and how the dialogue feels like something that an AI would write. Also, get a load of this bullshit dialogue. Involving this one scene where Nathalie Emmanuel's character determines the name of the baby. If it's a girl, she'll be given the name Sunny Hope. And if it's a boy, he'll be named Francis. Get it? Get it? Because it's written and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and they're going to name the baby character after the director? Do you get it? Get it? What kind of a fucked up society are we living in? Anyway, the rest of the acting, while not terrible, wasn't that great, especially since Aubrey Plaza, Shia LaBeouf, Lawrence Fishburne, Catherine Hunter, Jason Schwartzman, D.B. Sweeney, Talia Shire, and fucking Dustin Hoffman are all horribly wasted since they're not given that much to do in the film. And on the other hand, Jon Voight, oh my God, what a bad performance he gave out. Like, I'm not even kidding. This is one of his worst performances I've seen in quite some time from Jon Voight. It may not be as bad as Bratz, but still. But still, what an embarrassing performance from him. The editing was all over the place. The pacing was a sluggish mess, since for a movie that was 138 minutes long, it felt like it was going on for 3.5 hours. And you know what? One of my friends on Facebook, Alex Meyer, made a pretty good comparison involving runtime. There was a reason why Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer were my top two favorites of last year, because they did a lot with its 3-hour runtime and it served a purpose. That's why both of those movies I consider like masterpieces and great films that do a wonderful job with using the 3-hour runtime. With Megalopolis, however, it just felt like it just would not end. And it was only keep in mind too, it was only 138 minutes long. Like, for goodness sake. It also tries to throw in its main theme involving art versus politics, but sadly never comes to fruition. And not only was the ending a convoluted mess, but the CGI visual effects in this movie looked very unconvincing, since not once throughout the entire film did I believe that I was in this world, especially since the CGI effects in this movie are nothing but a sloppy mess. I mean, there are even some shots in the film that you could clearly tell that the actors are on a green screen. $120 million for this? Are you kidding me, Coppola? Are you kidding me? And you know what, Coppola? You have disappointed me for the last time. You have really, really disappointed me for the last time. Given the mess of this movie and the controversy surrounding the film, where you not only hanged out with young girls on the set, but also hanged out and kissed an underage 13-year-old girl. What were you thinking?
And you know who Francis Ford Coppola is still friends with?
Victor Salva, the pedophile, the fucking predator of a pedophile who molested Nathan Forrest Winters in 1988 during the filming of Clown House.
What does that tell you?
Coppola, it's time for you to retire. Seriously. You have disappointed me and everyone else for the last time. It's time to go. It's time to go, Coppola. Honestly, it's no wonder why nearly every studio didn't want to touch Megalopolis. This is seriously career suicide. Yeah, overall, Megalopolis is one of the most self-indulgent, boring, and inconsistent movies I've ever seen. And not only is it one of the most disappointing films I've seen in 2024, but this is definitely up there with You Without You as being one of Francis Ford Coppola's very worst movies he's made to date. 3 out of 10 or a D+. Coppola, it's time for you to retire. You have made great movies back in the 1970s, but you're no longer the great filmmaker that you claim to have been. It's time to go.
Similar to John Lasseter, great filmmaker back in the day, but has been now. Creepy has been.
Yeah, really. On the plus side, thankfully the last 2 September reviews are positive. Thankfully the last 2 September films we're going to talk about are positive ones. Starting with My Old Ass. And no, there's no way in hell that I'm showing my old ass on camera. Like, I don't want to do that. The movie is called My Old Ass. What a title, by the way. Anyway, My Old Ass.
I bet $20 that if Mitch comes on here, he's gonna make a joke about that title.
I'm willing to bet that as well. Anyway. Yeah, Mitch, I'm looking at you, boy. I'm looking at you, boy! Looking at you, boy! Anyway, okay. So, My Old Ass is basically about an 18-year-old birthday, an 18th birthday mushroom trip brings Elliot face to face with her wisecracking 39-year-old self. When the older Elliot starts handing out warnings about what her younger self should and shouldn't do, she realizes she has to rethink everything about family, love, and what's becoming a transformative summer. I want to see this because I really like Aubrey Plaza, and the premise already had me intrigued to check this one out, and the fact that it's gotten a lot of positive buzz when it premiered at the Sundance Film Festival earlier this year. And guys, I loved this movie. I really, really love this one. This is one of those movies where you need to see this. You need to go and watch this movie after this podcast, because this is one of the best movies I've seen this entire year so far. The story felt highly engaging. Megan Park's directing was fantastic, and so was the screenplay she wrote for the film, especially in terms of it having witty and clever dialogue, characters that feel fleshed out, as well as feeling like real people, and the tone successfully balancing its comedic and dramatic elements into the mix. The acting was absolutely terrific. Maisie Stella was absolutely wonderful as Elliot. This is one of the best breakthrough performances I've seen from an actress this year so far. And the fact that this is her very first movie really shows on how much I'm really looking forward to seeing what she's going to do in the future. Aubrey Plaza, on the other hand, man, she stole the entire show as the older version of Elliot. Like, she had some funny moments throughout the entire film that had me laughing so hard. And Percy Hines White, who you may remember from the Netflix show Wednesday, he plays Chad in the film, and he is also brilliant as that character. It's got great soundtrack, excellent cinematography, very good editing. It's very well paced throughout. And it's also very funny throughout, especially when it came to some of the good humor shown in the film, including that one sequence, no spoilers by the way, that had me laughing so hard. It also does a brilliant job exploring its main themes involving family and love and what it means to be growing up. And on top of that, it also has one of my favorite endings that I've seen in the movie in 2024. Now, my only issue I did have with the film is that I wish the film was 10 to 15 minutes longer, since there were also some elements of the film that could have been expanded upon more, but that's really it. I love this movie. My Old Ass is a hilarious, charming, and deeply moving coming-of-age drama featuring a fantastic breakthrough performance by Maisie Stella, as well as Aubrey Plaza giving what is possibly my favorite performance so far, while also being a wonderful portrait of family and love. This is one of the best movies I've seen in 2024, and I'm going to give it a very enthusiastic 9.5 out of 10 or an A. Check it out.
Please. Now we're going to get to A Different Man, and this movie had a ton of potential in telling the story about Sebastian Stan on having this facial condition which he gets surgery on, only for a man with a similar condition to pretty much steal the spotlight when a play is being developed based on his life. However, this is one of those movies that didn't really live up to its potential. I will say the performances are good, with Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson being the standouts. There's some decent visuals here and there, and the music is good as well. However, my problem is that it's a story I feel like has been done before and better. Then the pacing is really slow, like nothing happens for the first 45 minutes or so, as we just see the main character living his life before he gets his surgery. Also, without getting into spoilers, I was completely unsatisfied with the ending. Like, when the credits started rolling, I was like, that's it? That's the ending? Honestly, I get why people would like this movie, but it was just too boring and generic for my taste, and I'm unfortunately giving A Different Man the seal of mediocrity.
This is one of our biggest disagreements with this one, because this is one of the best movies I've seen in 2024. Not only did the movie feature Sebastian Stan at one of his best performances yet, but I also found A Different Man to be a poignant, captivating, and thought-provoking portrait on identity, perspective, transformation, and self-discovery. The story felt nicely structured and highly engaging. Aaron Schimbert's directing was terrific, especially with the way he guides us through this bizarre and unsettling yet thought-provoking journey involving Edward and the transformation of his life throughout. And Aaron's screenplay was also fantastic, especially with how well written the dialogue felt, how real and fleshed out the characters felt, and how it brilliantly balances the tone between psychological drama and black comedy. The acting was absolutely terrific. As stated before, Sebastian Stan gives out one of his best performances as Edward. Adam Pearson was also fantastic as Oswald, and this might be one of the best supporting performances I've seen in the movie this entire year. And the actress that plays Ingrid was also great in the film too. It's got an excellent musical score, fantastic cinematography, great editing. It's very well paced throughout. The makeup they did on Sebastian Stan's character was absolutely outstanding. And the best way I would also describe the black comedy in the film is in these words. These words. Bizarre yet witty. Especially when there were some scenes in the film that actually did have me laughing so hard throughout. And yeah, it was fantastic. And the film does a fantastic job with the way it explored its themes on identity, perspective, transformation, self-discovery, as well as self-loathing. That's another reason why I love this movie, with the way it also explored its theme of self-loathing. Now, I do agree with Søren that the rushed ending was my only issue with the film. While I understood the choices made, I would state they could have added like 5 more minutes of the film. So there were a couple elements and symbolism displayed in the ending that could have been explored a bit more. But otherwise, that's it. Overall, A Different Man features 2 fantastic tour de force performances by Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson, and this is without a doubt one of the most captivating and thought-provoking films I've seen this year, and it is hands down one of the best movies I've seen in 2024. Check it out. 9.5 out of 10 or an A. Go see it.
Now we're gonna get to White Bird, and if things weren't bad enough for Lionsgate this year, this movie was supposed to be released all the way back in 2022, but for some reason or another was pushed back 2 entire years. And the 2 nails in the coffin were: 1, it came out shortly after The Zone of Interest showcased the Holocaust in a new light, like you've never seen it before, and this is just another Holocaust movie. And 2, this isn't a very good movie. I could point to all the cliches and preachy undertones that come with a movie like this, but I wouldn't mind those so much, except the characters were so bland, so forgettable, and the movie itself is just so slow, to the point where a 2-hour movie felt more like 3 hours. And the CGI is just so bad. The backgrounds are all
Yeah, what was up with the CGI? What was up with some of the CGI in this movie? Like, good grief.
backgrounds are all something you'd find on the Hallmark Channel, and especially one scene where we get to the wolves, and they look like something
Yeah,
out
the
that.
CGI wolves. Like, what the hell was that?
And they look like something out of that Call of the Wild movie nobody remembers. So in the end, there's better movies like this out there, like Schindler's List, Life is Beautiful, The Pianist, and so many others. Just avoid this one like the mass public did when this bombed hard in Hiroshima. I'm giving this one the seal of mediocrity.
I wouldn't go that far, Søren. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, yeah, I do agree. I do agree with you that it did feel cliche, but honestly, I thought the film was just okay. I thought the film was just all right. I thought the film was just fine and decent. It's well directed by Mark Forrester. The acting was terrific, especially from the two main actors that played Sarah Blum and Julian, who are both fantastic and give up excellent breakthrough performances. And Helen Mirren was also fantastic in the film as the older Sarah Bloom. It also has an excellent score by Thomas Newman, fantastic cinematography, brilliant production values and costume design, and it does a brilliant job with exploring its main theme and message involving kindness. That's the reason why I found this movie to be decent instead of like mid or mediocre. But with all that being said, the story was admittedly a cliche and contrived mess. And while the characterization was solid, I felt Mark Bombat's screenplay could have used some improvement on the dialogue since it felt clunky at times. Since it felt uneven and clunky at times. There's some uneven editing choices throughout, pacing issues here and there in the first and second act, as well as cliches that you've seen in other films before. And I gotta talk about two issues with the two choices in the film that were so bizarre. One was adding the Post Malone song at the beginning of the film, which really felt out of place. I don't usually comment on the song choices in the film, but adding that Post Malone song at the beginning of the film felt really odd.
I mean, say what you will about something like Moulin Rouge or Django Unchained using out-of-place songs. At least the songs themselves fit within the context of the movie to some extent. This didn't.
Yeah. Nope, this didn't. And the CGI, especially with having the wolves be CGI, what in the holy mother of God were they thinking with that? Especially with how sloppy the CGI looked to the point where they look like cartoons. That's what they look like. And yes, yes, Jose, there was a Post Malone song in a movie called Whitebird. Yeah. So overall, as a prequel / sequel to Wonder, I do think Whitebird was a step down from its successor or predecessor due to its cliches and the film not doing enough with showing the horrors of the Holocaust. But its well-acted cast and the film's brilliant execution on its theme and message involving kindness does make Whitebird a decent movie and worth a watch. So I probably give it like, yeah. So overall, it's a 6 out of 10 or a B minus. B minus, not D minus, B minus. All right, and then the next movie is The Outrun. The Outrun stars Saoirse Ronan, and she basically plays Rona, whom, after living life on the edge in London, attempts to come to terms with her troubled past as she returns to the wild beauty of Scotland or Orkney Islands, where she grew up, hoping to heal. This is hands down one of the better movies I've seen in 2024. I really like The Outrun a lot. Let's get the obvious out of the way first. The acting was absolutely terrific. Not only does Saoirse Ronan give out one of her best performances yet, But this is one of the best performances I've seen from a lead actress this entire year. And that's mainly due to how powerful and raw her performance felt. Especially when it came to playing a character who's been dealing with like alcohol addiction, which was really a powerful performance. Seriously, give Saoirse Ronan another Oscar nomination, please. Give her another nomination. She deserves it. And not only that, the story felt well structured and engaging. The directing was fantastic, especially with how the director guides us through Rona's life in a non-linear fashion. And not to mention the screenplay that she and Amy Liptrot, who, by the way, the movie was also based on the novel, and the fact that the author also wrote the screenplay for the film with the director is really fascinating, I should say. But anyway, the script that both of these women wrote for the film was fantastic, especially in terms of how well written the dialogue felt and how fleshed out and three-dimensional the characters felt. It's got wonderful cinematography. The editing was fascinatingly solid. It's got terrific sound design, and it does an excellent score. And it also does a brilliant job with the way it explores its themes on addiction, mental health, recovery, and the healing of power, and the healing power of nature. And without giving away what happens, it has one of the most breathtaking and beautiful endings I've seen the movie in 2024. If I had to point out two small issues with the film, though, it's that there are some pacing issues in the first and second act of the film, and there were some, and the choice of having techno music playing in the background in some scenes felt odd and uneven. If we heard more sound effects and more sound effects design involving the ocean waves, seagull, the wind, and the cows mooing, then it would have been a lot better. But otherwise, that's really it. Overall, the Outrun features Saoirse Ronan giving out one of the year's best performances, and I found this movie to be powerful, poetic, and poignant. Absolutely one of the better movies of the year. 9 out of 10 or an A-. Check it out.
Next, we have Saturday Night. And the movie about the time right before the first airing of SNL delivers on the amount of chaos that you expect. I will say it can be a bit all over the place, and the actors, while none of them seem to be half-assed in it, really vary in terms of how well they portray their real-life counterparts. Nicholas Braun is pretty much spot on as both Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson. Corey Michael Smith was pretty okay as Chevy Chase, as is Michael Rice as George Carlin. Wonderful and J.K. Simmons just playing themselves. Dylan O'Brien as Dan Aykroyd, not even close. Regardless, the direction from Jason Reitman and his writing along with Gil Keenan are both humorous and keep a frantic pace throughout. So if you want essentially 109 minutes of unbridled chaos, this movie is for you, as I'll give Saturday Night the seal of approval.
This is hands down. I love this movie too, and I agree with you, John Wick and Beavis and Butthead FTW all channel that this is hands down Columbia Pictures' best movie they made this year, easily. Hello, Positron, Potts, welcome to the podcast. Yeah, this is hands down one of the best movies I've seen this year. The story felt well structured and highly engaging, especially with it looking like we were actually watching the chaotic rehearsal going on in 90 minutes before the first taping of SNL. Not to mention, Jason Reitman does a terrific job with the way he directed this movie, especially with how he guides us through the chaotic energy while showing us on what filmmaking on set is like. And the screenplay that Gil Keenan wrote was fantastic, especially in terms of how witty and well written the dialogue felt. And not to mention, the acting from everybody involved was terrific, especially from Gabriel LaBelle, who you may remember 2 years ago from one of my favorite movies of 2022, which was Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans, where he played Sammy Fabelman, and he was fantastic in that film. And in this movie, he was brilliant as Lorne Michaels. And Dylan O'Brien in this movie, like, oh my god. Oh my god. We'll get to that in a little bit. We will get to that in a little bit. Okay, so anyway, Dylan O'Brien, this movie, like, oh my god, he was so hysterical as Dan Aykroyd, and everybody else from Corey Michael Smith, Cooper Hoffman, Rachel Zenett, Willem Dafoe, and fucking J.K. Simmons of all people are also brilliant in the film as well. It's got a terrific musical score, excellent cinematography, great editing and pacing, outstanding production values and production and costume design, and it's also really funny throughout, especially with how witty and clever the humor felt throughout, especially in some scenes involving Dylan O'Brien as Dan Aykroyd, to the point where it had me laughing so hard. And above all that, it has a great and satisfying ending. But okay, so my only issue I did have with the film is that I wish the film was a little longer, since like I would probably say like 2 hours, like two hours and like either 2 hours or 2 hours and 10 minutes, since there were some elements of the film that felt a bit rushed, and the movie doesn't get that much time to breathe. So I really wish it was just only a 2-hour film, but otherwise that's really it. Overall, Saturday Night Live is well acted, wild, funny, highly entertaining, and one of the best movies Jason Reitman has done in quite some time. And I know I might be in the minority on this, but this is one of the best movies I've seen in 2024. I would be lying if I didn't say that this is one of the best movies I've seen in 2024. I really love this movie. 9.5 out of 10 or an A. Go see it. And yeah. Oh yeah. We'll talk about that next time on the next podcast. But boy, I'll have a lot to say about that budget. But anyway, next movie Søren and I are going to talk about is the documentary film Piece by Piece.
This time, Pharrell Williams gets a biopic treatment, only this time taking advantage of Universal buying the Lego rights from Warner Bros. And making a one-of-a-kind film from a certain point of view. When you take away the animation, it's just your standard music biopic about how this guy went from a nobody with dreams to one of the biggest stars in pop music. Yeah, it can be a bit slow here and there, so this is probably the weakest theatrical Lego movie, but I'd say give it a watch. I'll give Piece by Piece the seal of accuracy.
I do agree with you. That's the weakest out of all the Lego movies, but really, despite all this, especially since there were a couple pacing issues, there were a couple times like where the pacing was a bit of a frantic mess, and I wish the film was 10 to 15 minutes longer, given that there were some things in it that did feel rushed. Like it doesn't give us enough time to dive more into Pharrell's darker life, especially when he lost his grandmother, as well as not exploring that much more on how his signature song "Happy," as well as the Kendrick Lamar song "All Right" came to be. And also the thing the documentary added involving the Neptunes hasn't aged all that well, given that earlier this year, Hugo filed a legal action against Williams over the trademarks for the production duo's name, and as a result, Williams subsequently confirmed that the duo were no longer on speaking terms. But despite all that, I really liked this documentary. Now let's start with the obvious. The animation is spectacular. Like the other Lego movies, how it's animated and how the effects made it seem like it was actually done in Legos, it's nothing short of spectacular. And the visuals add such a nice and stunning touch to it as well. The story of the documentary felt engaging. Morgan Neville did an excellent job with the way he directed this documentary. And for those who don't know who Morgan Neville is, he directed 20 Feet from Stardom, which was one of the best movies I saw from 2013. And not to mention, need I say more about his other documentary he directed? Won't You Be My Neighbor? The Mr. Rogers documentary that I absolutely loved. Need I say more? It's also got terrific vocal performances from everybody involved, including Pharrell Williams, Morgan Neville, Gwen Stefani, Kendrick Lamar, Timbaland, Busta Rhymes, Jay-Z, and even fucking Snoop Dogg himself. And the interviews were also fascinating to watch, given how we get more information on what happened and how Pharrell Williams came to be and who he is known as today. It's got a great soundtrack. It's got good edit. It's got a great soundtrack, good editing, and there's also some good humor throughout too. Like no spoilers by the way, but let's just say there's a scene involving a spray, a PG spray. And the other big praise I have with the film, besides its animation, is its message. It throws in this very powerful and truthful message involving on how you shouldn't try to exclusively confirm on what society expects from you, and instead try doing something that makes you happy. That is a very powerful and important message that I feel everybody should learn about and given the dark times we're living in today's day and age. Overall, Piece by Piece is a highly entertaining and moving animated documentary film that does a great job teaching you on who Pharrell Williams is and how he came to be, as well as delivering its very powerful message too. I really like this one. 8 out of 10 or B+. And our next movie we're going to talk about is Smile 2. Now, for those who know, I really enjoyed this first Smile. I was surprised by the first Smile film. I thought it was an entertaining horror film that even despite I thought it was a horror film that even despite its cliches that you've seen in other horror films before, nevertheless delivered on its premise that made it an entertaining and creepy experience throughout. And which is why I was looking forward to seeing Smile 2. And my God, I really liked this movie. I really, really liked Smile 2 a lot. The story felt intriguing and well-structured. Parker Finn did a wonderful job with the way he directed this movie, and his screenplay was also solid too, especially in terms of the characterization and solid dialogue. The acting was very good, especially with Naomi Scott, who I feel delivers her best performance yet as the pop star Sky Riley. It's got a good soundtrack, fantastic cinematography, especially with how Parker Finn moves the camera around in some places that fascinated me to no end. As well, it's got great editing and a fantastic opening sequence that was also fucking nuts. Like, oh man. And when it came to the horror elements in the film, yes, there were some jump scares in there, but not once did any of the jump scares come off as feeling cheap, and rather they felt effective. And that's also mainly because how the film does a great job building and delivering some real tension as well. And if you thought the first Smile film was gnarly, holy shit, the kills in Smile 2 were even more gory and effective than in the first. And the practical effects added such a nice touch with the score, leading to the ending, although I'll talk about that in a bit, having my jaw dropped and on the edge of my seat. Now, as much as I really liked this one, there are some issues with the film. I did think that the film was 10 to 15 minutes too long, especially since there were some things in the second act that did drag the film down a bit. And it does suffer through some pacing issues in the second act as well. And like the first film, it also has a share of predictability, especially in the ending. Like, I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end, but when it came to what happened to Sky, I kind of called it. I kind of knew what happened, but but that effective kill that effective kill at the end did make up for it. So yeah. Welcome to the podcast, dude. And to answer your question, I honestly prefer Smile 2 a bit more. A bit more because of how because of how entertaining and creepy, and because of how more creepy it felt in my opinion. Overall, despite predictability, Smile 2 is regardless one of those rare sequels where it managed to be even better than the first. Not only due to its strong, powerful performance by Naomi Scott, but also due to how creepy, chilling, and effective the whole thing felt. If you like the first Smile film, definitely check out Smile 2 because Smile 2 is even better. 8 out of 10 or a B+. Check it out. Hey Søren, I'll be right back for a second. I'm gonna go get some water.
All right, I'm gonna go over Reliving Time in the meantime. The story about Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh in a relationship is honestly the typical romantic drama. It's also a bit slow at times, where scenes go on for far longer than I'd like them to go. But my main problem with this movie is its non-linear structure, which felt more like a gimmick than anything. However, it does have some good chemistry from the two leads, and it's got some funny and emotional moments. So I say stream it at least once for them. It gets yet another seal of accuracy for me.
All right, I'm back. So I did see We Live in Time as well, and I really like this movie a lot. I really like this one. Now, yes. Yes, I did feel Nick Payne's screenplay could have used some improvement on the dialogue since it felt clunky at times. And there were some pacing issues here and there, as well as the film going for those cliches that you've seen in other romance films before. But the story, nevertheless, especially with it being non-linear, felt well-structured and engaging. John Crowley's directing was very good, and the acting was great, especially from Florence Pugh, who absolutely delivers one of her best performances yet as Alma. And Andrew Garfield was also fantastic as Tobias, and the chemistry between Pugh and Garfield was fantastic. And on top of a very good musical score, excellent cinematography, solid editing, the film being surprisingly funny at times, especially since there were some moments of good humor sprinkled into the mix, as well as the film doing a very good job with the way it explored its themes involving love, loss, morality, and time, and an ending that felt heartbreaking yet powerful. I found We Live in Time to be a poignant and deeply moving romantic film about love, loss, morality, and time. Features some excellent performances and chemistry by Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. 8 out of 10 or B+. I really enjoyed this one, and I recommend it. Our next film is a political satire called Rumors. It stars Kate Blanchett, Charles Dance, and Alicia Vikander, and it's basically, and the premise goes something like this. It's about the leaders of 7 wealthy democracies who get lost in the woods while drafting a statement on a global crisis. They soon become spectacles of incompetence, contending with with increasingly surreal obstacles as night falls in the misty woods, and they realize they are suddenly alone. Now, I was interested in this one, given that Kate Blanchett and Kate Blanchett and Alicia Vikander were in it, as well as Charles Dance, and the premise seemed intriguing alone, so I was interested in this one. I really did not like this one at all. I really did not like this movie. In fact, I found rumors to be a tedious slog to the finish line, as well as a convoluted and inconsistent mess. Terrible, because there were some good things in it, like the acting, especially from Kate Blanchett, Charles Dance, and Alicia Vikander, although she's not in the film that much, was very good. And the musical score was very good as well. It's got good cinematography and solid editing transitions as well. But that's about it, sadly. The story was all over the place. The directing and screenplay were a mess. It's got sluggish pacing. And although there were a couple of frequent laughs in the beginning, the rest of the humor felt very flat, including some jokes that are nothing but very poor taste, especially two involving, I'm not making this up, by the way, suicide and assassinations. Yeah, they're not jokes. They're just really poor attempts at them, and just in very poor taste. Some of the imagery involving mud zombie people and a giant brain felt very odd. And you know, the thing is, I love weird movies if they're done well, but this is just. But these things I just mentioned, they're just weird for the sake of it, and it really took me out of the film. The movie doesn't really say much with its themes involving power, leadership, and the consequences of indifference to the world's problems, because the movie doesn't do enough with the way it explores them at all. And the ending was an anticlimactic mess. Like, I'm not kidding when I tell you how it ends. By the way, it ends with the speech from like one of the Prime Minister of Canada, and then after the speech is done, it just cuts to black, and then the movie just stops, and it cuts to the credits. Like, I'm sorry, but what kind of an ending is that? You can't just end your movie with that speech and then with that speech and then all of a sudden stop. Like, all of a sudden stop right there for the credits. Like that is just anticlimactic. Overall, despite its well-acted cast and the film having some funny moments here and there, not only was rumors, unfortunately, a long and tedious slog to the finish line, but also an inconsistent and convoluted mess. It's not terrible, but I would not recommend this one at all. 4.5 out of 10 or a C. And yes, we will talk about Anora on the next podcast. And I did see Anora as well. Spoilers, by the way, but I don't care. It's already battling Dune Part 2 for my number one film of 2024, and I will talk about that next time on the podcast. Why? So,
I'll get to it when I get to it. But until then, Venom: The Last Dance.
Oh God! Oh my God!
Honestly, the Spidey-less Spider-Man movies are the ultimate yin-yang franchise. I mean, Morbius and Man Web can seriously go fuck themselves, but I've had a ton of fun with these Venom movies. Certainly not perfect, but I've always enjoyed the dynamic chemistry between Ed Brock and the Venom symbiote. So does this movie deliver on what I liked to this part of the franchise? Yeah, I'd say so. Like the previous movies, this is by no means a masterpiece, and in fact, it's easily the weakest of the trilogy. The pacing can be a bit wonky. The antagonists aren't the most compelling, especially Null, who doesn't even do anything throughout.
He doesn't even do much throughout the entire film. And the movie and the trailers basically said, "Oh, he's gonna play a part. He's gonna play a part in the actual film." when that's not even the case. He's barely in the fucking movie.
And not to mention,
that is just false advertising right there.
And not to mention, the CGI is easily the worst of the trilogy.
Oh my god, the CGI in this movie was horrendous. Like 120 million it cost to make, and yet the CGI effects in this movie look like something out of a PlayStation 2 game. Like, what the actual fuck?
Regardless, what makes this movie are the fun action scenes throughout, especially in the third act. But like the last two movies, the star of this movie is Tom Hardy as both Eddie Brock and Venom. Their dynamic is still as humorous and dynamic as before, and surprisingly a little emotional near the end. So if you're looking for something to wash the sour taste of Morbius and Madame Web out of your mouth, this might or might not do it for you. As for me, I got the same dark, violent fun I expected out of these Venom movies, and I'm giving this one the seal of adequacy.
You're all looking at my face. You're all looking at my face right now. You already know what's coming. Venom The Last Dance fucking sucked. Like, I am not kidding when I say that not only is this the worst of the three, but this is one of the worst movies I've seen in 2024. And no, this is not a 0 out of 10. This is not a 0 out of 10. Because there were two things that kept it from being a 0. Number one, Tom Hardy. He once again kills it as Eddie Brock. And once again, Eddie Brock is by far the best character in this whole damn trilogy. Look who's talking, you Mr. Pretentious, you pretentious. I love critically acclaimed films. Shut up, or I will fuck you up. Yeah, that's right. You better run, you pussy punk bitch. Sorry about that, fault. I don't know where he came from, but I don't know where the hell he came from, but Jesus Christ. But anyway, yeah, the story was blah 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 blah. Forget about the story being all over the place. People want to see me. People want to see me. That, you know what? That's it. Come here, you piece of shit. Come here. You're gonna fucking interrupt my review like that. Come here, you piece of shit. Come here, you piece of shit. You still fucking suck, man. Your reviews suck. Yes. Shut up and go away. Wipe your ass on total, you fucking dick. Shut up. Yes, Dad, I'm fine. I'm just... Hold on. I'm sorry. I did not expect to do that, but there you go. That basically proves on why I cannot stand Venom as a character in this one. And the thing is, Venom is one of my favorite villains in Spider-Man. So I really feel the character really deserves a lot better. A lot better than this. So yeah. The story was all over the place, especially with the subplots. The movie throws throws in that go absolutely nowhere. Kelly Marcel's directing was terrible, and so was the screenplay she wrote for the film, especially in terms of the dialogue being so bad, being so fucking stupid, like so fucking bad, especially since it feels like something. Oh my god, the dialogue was so bad. It literally felt like she got an AI to write that screenplay. And once again, the characters feel one-dimensional and paper thin, and the tone was so all over the place, all over the place, where it can't even decide if it wants to be a comic book action film, a road trip comedy film, or even a drama film. And of course, the movie also has a share of cliches as well, including the goddamn odd and repetitive Odd Couple-esque comedy that got old and repetitive real quick. Like, good lord. Oh, but that's what people want in these movies. They want more Odd Couple as comedy films. They want me to be the annoying one, because I am the most annoying one, you pretentious bastard. Shut up! Jeez, it's like now I got a Venom symbiote in me. Not literally, but you guys get the point. The rest of the acting was terrible, especially. Okay, actually, let me rephrase that. The rest of the acting, while not terrible, wasn't good. Chiwetel Ejiofor, Juno Temple, Reese Affan, and Andy Serkis all feel horribly wasted in this movie, while Peggy Lou, oh my god, Peggy Lou was obnoxious as Mrs. Chang. Like what the fuck? What the fuck was up with that performance? The soundtrack was obnoxious. The editing was terrible. The pacing was a sluggish mess. Like, this movie was so boring. Like, for a 95-minute film, it felt like it was going on for 2.5 hours. Like, I literally was struggling to stay awake. When I wasn't like getting all furious at how annoying Venom was, I was also really struggling to stay awake. It was that boring. And even the action sequences aren't that exciting. Not even the third act action sequences, since there's no real tension during those sequences, and it didn't help that those sequences alone are also poorly edited as well. And that ending and post-credits scene, oh my god, what were they thinking with that? Venom, the last butt munch indeed. Just butt munch. Yeah, just. And of course, I already mentioned the CGI effects. They looked sloppy as hell, and some of them looked unfinished. Just how in the holy mother of fuck this movie cost $120 million to make, yet the visual effects of this movie look this cheap, rushed, and sloppy is something I'll never understand whatsoever. Yeah, overall, not only do I find Venom: The Last Dance to be one of the worst conclusions to a trilogy I've ever seen, but it is also one of the most convoluted, contrived, idiotic, and reprehensible films I've seen this entire year, and it is easily one of the worst films of 2024. 1 out of 10 or a D-. Fuck this movie. And let's just say that I'm just thankful that this godforsaken trilogy is over. And you know what that means? Give me a second. Give me a second. There we go. Goodbye, Venom trilogy. I will not miss you at all, you piece of shit trilogy. Goodbye. Goodbye. And good riddance. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and the thing about that, unlike James Bond's death, where it felt emotional and convincing, Venom's death is nothing more than just emotional manipulation. That's another thing I forgot to mention. How emotionally manipulative his death felt. Like, dude, you got what was coming to you, you annoying hack. And also, how stupid, how ironic that you called Eddie Brock a whining little bitch, given that you are the one that's also a whining little bitch, you pussy punk bitch. That's all I need to say about this piece of shit film.
Let's just get into Conclave. And this is Edward Berger's successor to his All Quiet on the Western Front reboot about the events of a ritual electing a new pope. What makes this movie work is a screenplay which brilliantly explores the things and the duties that come from such a prestigious religious organization, as well as the performances, especially Ray Fiennes in one of his very best. If this is the movie that gets him his overdue Oscar, then I welcome it. The production design and costumes are stunning, as are the cinematography and music. Thus, too, why I can say it's a worthy Oscar contender and a must-see for this year, which I'm giving the seal of cinema.
This is hands down one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. You know what? I'm going to let this clip sum up my feelings on this. Take it away, Jack Nicholson.
Fucking people.
Hold on. There we go.
Fucking people.
Seriously. And don't take it personally, guys. Don't take that personally. It's just a joke. Just a joke. Just a joke. That's all. I say this from the bottom of my heart. Do not miss Conclave. Conclave is one of the best movies I've seen. This is one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. I say this from the bottom of my heart. This is a great film. A great film that features Ray Fiennes giving out one of his best performances to date. And the acting from everybody else, from Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, and Isabel Rossellini, was absolutely terrific. The story felt highly engaging. Edward Berger's directing was fantastic. The screenplay was brilliant. It's got a fantastic musical score, fantastic cinematography, terrific editing, excellent pacing, excellent production values and costume design, and the twist. And without spoiling what happens, the twist of the film. There's a little twist involving this one particular character towards the end of the film that had my jaw dropped, and in a very good way. It literally blew me away. It literally blew me away. Like, my God, we really don't get films like this anymore. And even when we do, they feel so refreshing, like so refreshing. And that's what Conclave is. A refreshing, compelling, riveting, and intriguing movie, and absolutely one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. And yes, Ethan, it is indeed. I am going to give Conclave a very enthusiastic 10 out of 10 or an A+. It's one of the year's best films. Check it out, guys. Check it out.
Now for my pick of the show, and I'm gonna go with a mystery film from 1985 known as Clue. Based on the board game of the same name, this movie follows a group of rich strangers who get called to this big mansion before its owner and several others get brutally murdered. What makes this movie engaging is the feeling of not knowing who to trust, which only accelerates the more you know each character. It's also brilliantly written by Jonathan Lynn, who you may know would go on to make My Cousin Vinny. Each of the characters are compelling and well acted, with the standouts being Tim Curry and Michael McKean, and it keeps you guessing all the way to the end. Now, it's important to note that the movie famously has 3 different endings depending on which theaters showed them back in the day, which could have been why it was an initial bomb. But you can find them all on the Blu-ray release. As for my preference, my favorite is ending C, followed by ending A, followed by B. But whichever ending you think is best, I guarantee you'll get a kick out of Clue regardless. Now for my dog of the show, and considering the holidays are just around the corner, I've been thinking. Most of us have had it easy this time of year. I mean, we have all these wonderful Christmas classics like A Christmas Carol, Home Alone, the Rankin Bass specials, and so forth. And it kind of makes me feel bad for the Jewish folk. I mean, as far as I know, they only have 2 well-known Hanukkah specials. One is that one Rugrats episode, and the other is the infamous Adam Sandler animated movie known as 8 Crazy Nights. Now, I get they were trying to make this great holiday classic as this unlikable jerk slowly learns to become nicer by the end of the movie, and it's got some pretty good animation as well as some.
The animation was one of the best things about the film, hands down.
But here's the main problem I have with this movie. It's a heavy mess in production. Hence, the problems I have with the worst of their movies range true here. You got the unlikable protagonist, even by this genre standards. You got Sandler playing not just this protagonist, but also Whitey in the most irritating voice. You got the gratuitous toilet humor that doesn't even match the tone of the movie, especially involving those shitting deers, literally.
Oh god, yeah, that was disgusting. Like that served no purpose other than just to be gross out for the sake of it.
You got the Access product placement that's only matched by the likes of the Emoji Movie and that Chris Pratt Garfield movie. Reportedly, they were considering cutting some of the more notorious stuff out, but thanks to certain focus groups, they had no choice but to keep it in. And as a result, is it any wonder why this bombed hard and why Adam Sandler never made an anime movie again until the first Hotel Transylvania a decade later? Because 8 Crazy Nights is one of his very worst movies, and honestly, the Jewish community deserves so much better than this.
They really do. And while I wouldn't say it's one of his very worst, it's still pretty bad. My pick of the show, excuse me for a second. Since we were talking about Francis Ford Coppola earlier, my pick of the show is what I consider his magnum opus. It is a tie between The Godfather 1 and 2.
Both classics in their own right.
Mm-hmm. And yes, I also loved The Godfather Part 3. Now, yes, The Godfather Part 3 isn't as masterful as the first 2. Nor is it as great as the first 2. But this is still a very good sequel that I felt was a satisfying conclusion. And as for The Godfather 1 and 2, they literally like show like who Francis Ford Coppola really was, and his name was immediately on the map when these 2 films came out. So yeah, these films did a wonderful job with the way they explored the Corleone family and the generations they live in, and the rise and fall of the empire of an empire that the Corleone family built. And yeah, I highly recommend all 3 all three. You know, even though The Godfather Part 3 isn't as great as the first two, I still love it, and that's why I recommend all three as my pick at the show. Now, as for my dog of the show, hey Søren, I'm not kidding when I tell you this. Your dog of the show is more tame compared to my dog, because my dog of the show is what I consider to be the worst Christmas movie ever made. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Here it is. My dog of the show goes to Surviving Christmas.
That's about as bad, I'll admit. Probably a bit worse.
It's even worse because what's so funny about a guy like about this one character trying to kill himself? Like how is this funny? And on top of that, this story is such a confusing mess, and which is kind of ironic given the fact that in one of the interviews, Christina Applegate said, we made this just to confuse you. Well, good job for that, because you confused me all right, but you also made me feel depressed while watching this movie. And every character in this movie is a fucking idiot. From Ben Affleck's character to like Christina Applegate's character, to Catherine O'Hara's character, like every character in this movie is a fucking idiot. The screenplay was atrocious. The jokes were beyond idiotic and distasteful. It's poorly directed, poorly edited, poorly shot too, especially since it feels like something out of a Hallmark movie. Except Mike Mitchell ended up doing Trolls, which I did not like. And he also directed Kung Fu Panda 4, which was mediocre at best. Oh yeah, and did I forget to mention that he also directed oh yeah, Søren, and did I forget to mention he also directed Alvin and the Chipmunks Shipwrecked?
I haven't seen those movies, but I guarantee they're really bad.
They are. But yeah. It's just the ending felt unsatisfying, and it's just filled with cliches that you've seen in other films before, and that's why this is one of the worst Christmas. This is not just the worst Christmas movie I've ever seen. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, period. And that's why Surviving Christmas is easily my dog of the show. The only thing it deserves other than the dog is a big fat lump of coal. Fuck this movie. Fuck it straight to hell with a dirty dick.
Now for my least and most anticipated films of the 2025. And like Nick said, he's not going to go over his list because he hasn't worked on them yet. But regardless, here we go. As for my least anticipated, number 15 is a movie that seems like this generation's Brave for a Good Dinosaur, where it's been in development hell even after the trailer came out, to the point where they completely switched directors right in the middle of production. Pixar's Elio. Number 14, the How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake, which given
are they even doing this?
Which, given it's by the same director, deemed Dubois better just by his existence. Number 13, Now You See Me 3, which looks like a sequel Too Little Too Late. Number 12, Wolfman, which in spite of Lee Whannell's track record doesn't look that great. Number 11, Mortal Kombat 2, which spared not only improve on the mediocre reboot, but also give us the actual combat the first movie promised. Number 10, I love Mel Gibson as a director, but this looks like a generic action film, and the only reason why he made this movie is to fund his Passion of the Christ sequel, Flight Risk.
Of course.
Number 9, a tie between two Too Little Too Late Disney sequels, Tron Ares and Freakier Friday. Number 8, continuing Kevin Costner's attempt to make the Western MCU, Horizon and American Saga Chapter 2. Number 7, the new Smurfs movie, which barely impressed me after the last 3 movies just fell flat on their faces.
Oh my god.
Number 6,
These
Karate Kid
Smurf movies, these Smurf movies, they just need to stop.
Number 6, Karate Kid Legends, which is it just me, or is the idea of making it a sequel to both the original film and the remake really stupid, with bringing in Ralph Macchio from the OG and Jackie Chan from a reboot? I mean, that's like making a sequel to Halloween, except you get Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie from the original, but then also cast Malcolm McDowell, who played Dr. Loomis from the remake.
Which makes no sense.
Number 5, the Russo Brothers Electric State, which will hopefully tide us over into the next 2 Avengers movies. Number 4, my never-ending battle with the fandom continues with Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
That's one of my least anticipated films of next year. So I will mention that on the next podcast. So. Oh, by the way, to the FNAF fans, except for Rocky and Trev, fuck off.
Number 3, a tie between the Plankton movie and the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants. Number 2, Snow White and the Seven Clever Boys.
Oh my god! God, that looks terrible.
And you want to know the budget for this thing? Like $269 million.
$269 million! And yet it looks this atrocious and cheap. What the fuck, Disney?
And number 1, it's already bad enough that David Zaslav had to cancel the Batgirl movie, the Scooby-Doo Holiday Special, has his finger on the cancel button for Coyote vs. Acme, took damn near forever to release Salem's Lot, and dropped distribution for the new Cindy Tartakovsky film, but he also had to release this trailer that looks like an absolute train wreck in the making. My number 1, without question, is the Minecraft movie.
That movie looks like shit.
Indeed. Now
by the way, David Zaslav, fuck you.
Indeed.
Fuck you for ruining Warner Brothers, you piece of shit.
Now for my most anticipated films of 2025. Number 25, David
Zaslav.
My most anticipated films. Number 25, David Lowery's Mother Mary. Number 24, Thunderbolts Asterisk, which I'm going to keep calling it because that's what they put on the poster. Number 23, Avatar, Fire and Ash. Number 22, Andy Serkis's Animal Farm. Number 21, I know the last movie failed to impress, but hear me out here. Jurassic World Rebirth. Now, the reason I have this in my most anticipated films is because Colin Trevorrow is pretty much gone, and they replaced it with the writer David Coeb and director what's his name? The director of The Creator is making this.
Gareth
Edwards. Thank you. Hopefully, by the end, they find a way. Number 20.
Yeah, but my main concern about this one is that this is taking place 5 years after the event of Jurassic World Dominion, which Jurassic World Dominion is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. That's my main concern with this.
Number 20 is the John Wick spinoff Ballerina. Number 19, Mickey 17 by Bong Joon-ho. Number 18, 28 Years Later. Number 17, Wicked Part 2. Number 16, Benny Safdie's Smashing Machine.
Yes!
Number 15, Yorgos Lanthimos' Begonia.
I cannot wait to see that next year.
Number 14, Derek Cianfrance's Roofman. Number 13, a tie between James Gunn's Superman and the Fantastic Four First Steps. Number 12, the Lilo and Stitch reboot. Number 11, Dan Trachtenberg's 2 Predator movies. Number 10, A Tie Between Dogman and the Bad Guys 2. Number 9, Edgar Wright's Running Man. Number 8, the Nick Gunn reboot quote with Liam Neeson. Number 7, the Michael Jackson biopic. Number 6, Paddington in Peru. Number 5, Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Number 4, Captain America, Brave New World. Number 3, Paul Thomas Anderson's Battle for Batkin Cross. Number 2, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. And number 1, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning.
Definitely looking forward to that one next year.
And for those wondering why I don't have the new Looney Tunes movie and the Wallace and Gromit movies, the answer is because they're actually going to be limited release in theaters in December. So in a way, I'm going to count them as 2024 movies. So
Yeah.
be on the lookout as at least I look at them in the next podcast.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's podcast. I certainly had a lot of fun doing so, and thank you all so much for joining me on tonight's podcast. We'll be back again in hopefully two or three more weeks for episode 52. And for more movie reviews. And as always, be sure to subscribe to Søren the FilmBrony on his YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. Give him the love he absolutely deserves. He's a great person. He's a great friend to talk to, as well as a very talented person. And until we meet again for episode 52 of the FilmBrony Podcast, I'm going to say these final words for my goodbyes. We'll see you next time, and we'll see you on the next podcast. And as always, take good care of yourself, not just physically, but also mentally as well, because your mental health is very important. So take good care of that. So yeah. See you guys on the next podcast. So long for now.